Welcome to More Fanime. I am your fan of more anime, Mr. Morfetto, and today we will be taking a deep dive into the Vinland Saga Book 2. That's correct, people. I just finished this amazing book, and I gotta say, I'm still having a great time with this manga. Get that out there right now. Please like, share, and subscribe to the More Fanime YouTube page for more anime goodness, manga goodness. I gotta say, I am enjoying the Vinland Saga. I also have to let you know, if you didn't watch my first review on the book 1, I have not watched the Vinland Saga anime yet. I probably will eventually, but I am enjoying reading this bad boy. This is actually the first series that I've ever read and never watched the anime. I'm also reading Bleach right now, and I have seen an episode maybe when I was a kid, so this is literally the first ever manga I've read without checking out the anime first. So that says a lot, even though this was a gift. The first book was a gift, the second book was a gift, and I'm really enjoying this. I think that the characters in this series are amazing. I think there's a lot of mystery to be had. I think it's a grand adventure. I think the action is superb. You can really feel it. There's an amazing fight in this book that I think that jumps off the page. And it almost feels like you're watching the anime because the movements are so well drawn. It's very good. And, you know, Vikings are kind of like pirates, and I love pirates. If you've watched my One Piece reviews, you know I'm a big pirate lover. Now, Vinland Saga Book 2. We continue the story of Askeladd, my favorite character still, and Thorfinn, the orphan child of Thor's. You could say he's an orphan even though his mother and his sister are still alive. I was curious about the mother and sister aspect about this, and the way the first book ended with Thorfinn yelling to the heavens, yelling at Askeladd, following Askeladd and his crew, saying, "I will kill you someday." I kind of want more details onto what happened after that, because it kind of just jumps a little bit ahead at the beginning of this book with Thorfinn on a mission. He's a little bit older. There's like it's almost like a flashback, yet not. He's like a little older, and he gets found by this lady who he's injured, and she like takes care of him, fixes, helps him out. He's all beat up, lets him sleep there at her little cottage, gives him a bunch of food. He eats like a barbarian. You can tell he's been through some shiz. I mean, we saw him watch his father die in front of his eyes, and it was his fault. This was Thorfinn's fault that his father was killed. If Thorfinn wasn't there, I predict that Thor's could have probably beaten Askeladd's crew by himself. I don't know a whole lot about the entire Askeladd crew. There's only been a couple that actually have stood out. But the Ear and Bjorn, that's it. That's the only two that I really know their names in Askeladd's crew. Please comment down below and let me know if there's another character from Askeladd's crew I should be curious about, because as of right now, it's his right-hand man Bjorn and Askeladd and the Ear. So I would like to know more about his crew. That's the one thing I really love about One Piece is, every member of every crew seems to have a sick backstory or some kind of power, some kind of character about them. But a lot, so far, in only 2 books, and I'm sure I'm going to learn more going forward, the rest of Askeladd's crew are pretty no-name. They're strong. I'm sure they're strong, but they're not amazing. They're not spectacular like Thor's was, or Thorfinn is now, or even Askeladd, their leader. And I'm sure Askeladd doesn't want his crew to become stronger than him, but I'm sure he wants them to be tough SOBs. But yeah, so this book 2 kicks off. We find Thorfinn all beat up and whatnot. He gets help from this lady and her daughter. The daughter wants nothing to do with Thorfinn. He is a dirty little boy, and there's probably something wrong. And boy, howdy, is she right. Because almost immediately that next day, it seems like after they eat, she's like brushing his hair, the mom, and this knight rolls up, and he's like, hey, have you guys seen a little boy about yay high? Yeah, he's a pirate, and he killed 2 soldiers, and blah, 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 blah. And then Thorfinn like reaches behind his back, and he's got his knife that his father gave him, and he's like, I'm going to kill this bastard. And then before he can even do that, the mom who's helping him, the lady, she's like, yeah, this is my son. And I think, if I remember correctly, remember I've only read this book one time, so do not judge me. She says, this is my son, and I believe her real son was killed or died of just living in the Middle Ages, you know, like people died from the fucking common cold back then, so I wouldn't be surprised if he just died of being cold or hot, or shit happened back then. So one thing I really enjoy about this series is that they also include like little cliff notes of like real historical moments that happened. And I wonder how accurate some of this stuff is. Please comment down below and let me know. How accurate is the information we're given in these books? Like, there are like little fun facts about like, and back in 1880, fucking the Vikings fought with the English. I would like to know how accurate they are, because I'm following that part a little bit. So I'm not sure what's happening here. I almost think that Thorfinn's on his own in this part with the lady and the sister. Turns out he's actually on a mission for Askeladd, as you might have learned in the first book. Thorfinn does little missions for Askeladd, and then he gets to fight Askeladd. And from my knowledge, that is how Thorfinn has gotten strong, is constantly doing little things for him in exchange for battles against him back at camp that he does not win. And I don't think he thinks he's going to win anytime soon. He's just like, I'm going to keep fighting you every time I get the opportunity until I win and kill you honorably. Like, at first I was like, dude, you're pretty tough. You're an assassin little boy, and you could just kill Askeladd in his sleep if you wanted to, but you can almost tell without him even having to say it, that he wants to kill Askeladd when he is in a one-on-one battle with him. Straight up, honorable fight, just like his father would want. His father got cheated. Askeladd's kind of a little sneaky bitch, because he cheated. He was not just going to lay down his arms and say, okay, you win, we out. No. His teammate grabbed Thorfinn and said, we're going to kill your son if you don't put down your sword and give up. And Thor's is like, hey, you let my people go, you can kill me. I mean, I'm fine with that. Thor's was a saint. I wish we could learn more about Thor's. I hope we do down the line. I really do, because I think he's very interesting to me. There's something going on with the Thor thing, because in this same story, in book 2, we meet one of my new favorite characters, still not more favorite than Askeladd, for lack of a better word, Thorkell. Yes, another man with the word Thor in his name, which is throwing me off. So Thorkell has joined the English, I believe, and he's defending London on this bridge, and he is a beast. He almost looks like he's 7 foot tall. This dude is a bear of a man, and he joined London the English and to defend against the Vikings, the Danes or whatnot. And he did that, even though he is a Viking man, and he is one of their friends. He did that not only for money, but he did that because he was bored and he wants a good fight. And fighting against these English bitches doesn't make him happy. Thorkell really reminds me of Goku from Dragon Ball. And I'm sure down the line I'm going to be proven wrong, because I don't know what it is. He loves fighting, and he'll do anything to do it, to have that happen, even if it, causes danger to his teammates. He does not care. He wants to have a good fight. He'll even switch sides. I don't think Goku would switch sides, but when I read Thorkell's words in the manga, I read it in Sean Schemmel's voice, Goku's English voice actor. I don't know why, it just fits for me. The dude seems like a cool dude, and the only reason they're fighting him is because he's on the other side. They even offer Thorkell an option out, like, hey, we'll pay you double whatever they're paying you if you join us and let us by. They are scared of Thorkell. Thorkell's some kind of beast. There's something going on. Like, Thorkell has got to be related to Thors and Thorfinn. That's my first guess. But I could be wrong. I was wrong in One Piece, for example, when there was Monkey D. Luffy, and if you see the D, there's a D in One Piece. There's some characters have D as their middle initial, and I assumed at the beginning that they were all related. Boy, was I wrong. So maybe I'm wrong here, and maybe the Thors thing is just like a historical Viking name that passes down, like Michael. Like if everybody was named Michael or Mike, you're not going to assume that Michael and Mike are related. They're just common names. So Thorkell could be related to Thorfinn. But what I found interesting about this first appearance of Thorkell, one, Thorkell can throw a giant boulder over his head. Even though he's almost 7 feet tall, this guy is superhuman, just like Thor's and Askeladd and Thorfinn. Why are some of these people in this universe stronger than others? Other than just being an anime, manga, shonen, blah, blah, blah. I know this isn't shonen, but I don't know. There's something going on. Do they just train harder than the average person, or do they have some kind of magical blood? I'm so used to something being an explanation to why they're so talented. Are they just talented because they work so damn hard? I'm fine with that as well. Askeladd looks at Thorfinn and says, "Hey, man. You take out Thorkell, and I'll give you whatever you want." And, Thorfinn's like, "Yeah, you know what I want. I want to fight you again for the millionth time." And Askeladd's like, "Yeah, easy for me, because I'll just beat your ass again." I can feel like Askeladd is a nicer guy than he lets off. Like, he does care about his men. He does care about Thorfinn. He does feel bad, I think, about what happened with the Thors thing. He respects the shit out of Thors, or otherwise he wouldn't have taken his kid on as basically an apprentice. Because it almost, at least at this point in the story, it almost feels like Thorfinn is stronger than anybody in his crew, maybe other than Bjorn. Because he always sends him in first. Either that, or he treats him like, well, if Thorfinn dies, I'm out. I don't have to deal with his bullshit. He's always in a bad mood. He's very emo. He's always just bringing everybody down. I'll always send him in first. And if he somehow accomplishes it, then he can stay on the crew if he can keep up, or if his legs aren't broken. So he sends in Thorfinn against Thorkell, a man that Askeladd admits he knows and wouldn't fight unless he was being paid a lot of money. I believe there was some line in there in Book 2 where Askeladd says something like, "I'm not going to fight Thorkell for free, or for what we're getting paid for this." Because Thorkell's some kind of legend here. Askeladd sends Thorfinn knowing how strong Thorkell is. And Thorfinn goes in without even questioning it. And you can tell the minute Thorkell sees Thorfinn, he's like, all right, everybody get the fudge back, because I'm fighting this little child, because he's a little feisty. Let me crush him. He even fights him with his bare hands because he wants a challenge. Like, I feel like Thorkell is one of those people that just like he'll tie his hand behind his back if it makes the fight more challenging. Like if he was playing chess, he's like, I'll get rid of all my pawns and we'll see what happens, because I want it to be more challenging. So Thorkell and Thorfinn have literally the second best fight in the story so far for me. There hasn't been a lot of one-on-one fights, so I mean, I don't have a lot to compare it to. But my favorite fight being Thor's versus Askeladd, which was so good and so well drawn and so well done and so much fun to watch, and just the ending was so dark and sad. It was great. But Thorkell versus Thorfinn was so much fun. This kid comes in like a little Sasuke, little ninja boy, jumping and flipping, almost like Yoda from Star Wars versus some giant guy. I don't know. Big guy versus little guy. What's the story from the Bible? David and Goliath. That's almost what it felt like. This little kid's jumping around, cutting him when he can. He's got his little knife. He's trying to get him. He almost feels insulted that Thorkell won't fight him with a weapon. And Thorfinn even goes to stab him, and Thorkell blocks it with his bare hand and gets cut. Like, not cut, I'm sorry. He gets his hand stabbed with that blade, that magical blade that he got from his father. I don't believe it's magical, but it's his dope-ass blade. And Thorkell doesn't even flinch and starts wrenching this kid by the arm, pulls the kid's arm out of its socket, throwing him around almost like the Hulk and Loki in the Avengers, and fucks the kids up. Like, does not care. Messes up this kid's business, man. Thorkell kicks his ass, and you could tell because they show some close-up shots of Askeladd saying, ooh, I think maybe this kid's bit off a little bit more than he can chew here. It's not good. It's not looking good. It would have been kind of cool if Thorfinn found a way to beat this guy, but no. There was a point that Thorkell had Thorfinn dead to rights. He tells him that his father's Thor's. Somehow that comes up. And Thorkell gets a little taken back by that. He's like, wait, your dad's Thor's? So he knows Thor's. I have a feeling that if they were related, Thorkell wouldn't want to kill this kid. So maybe they just know each other through battle. Or they were teammates at some point. Or maybe they were part of a group, the Thor's. I don't know. But Askeladd and the crew bounce. They're like, hey, we're out of here. There's no winning this battle. Let's get out of here. And the whole crew, everybody leaves. They're like, we can't get past him. They leave Thorfinn to die. Thorfinn uses his only good arm and his blade to cut off, I believe, two of Thorkell's fingers and jump into the water and swim away with one good arm. Because he ripped the other arm out of its socket, swinging him around like the Hulk like in Avengers with Loki. So Thorkell waves at this kid with the bloody fingers that were just cut off, squirting blood, saying, well, hey, thanks for the fight, Thorfinn, that was fun. Yeah, we'll finish it for sure next time. Only one of us will survive. That's where I think that they wouldn't be related, is the fact that he wants to talk to him more about his father, Thor's. But he also wants to fight Thorfinn to the death. This was the highlight. This is my favorite part of the whole book, is their fight. And I just can't wait to find out more about Thorkell. I can't wait to find out more about Thorfinn. And I can't wait to find out more about Askeladd. Eventually, Askeladd and the crew are like, well, we gotta go do something else. And they are all packing their shiz. And Thorfinn shows up, bloodied, one-armed, out of his socket, hanging, dangling, and they're about to leave. They're about to march out and leave. Like, Askeladd wasn't even gonna try and save Thorfinn. So there is a part of me that thinks that Askeladd really thinks of this kid as an extension, as a sword, as a weapon, as an item, not as a person. He does slightly care about Thorfinn, but he also is like, hey man, if the dog runs away, it runs away. I'm giving it food, so if it wants to come back for food, it can come back for food. And Thorfinn comes back for more training. Basically training. I'm not sure if Thorfinn's actually training with somebody on the side yet, or his training and getting stronger is just fighting this guy, and plus he's got the blood of Thor's running through his body. So Askeladd tells Thorfinn, hey man, you want to stay with the crew here, right? You seem pretty beat up, dog. So we're leaving. And if you can't keep up, we will leave you behind. And Thorfinn, like a boss, I'm really starting to like this Thorfinn guy, by the way, pops his shoulder back into place and starts limping his way behind the march towards where they're going. Eventually, we get to see a little story about the Thorfinn's mother and sister, who are dealing with the loss of their, her brother and son and father and husband. And they're having a tough time back in Iceland, I believe. Please comment down below. Let me know if I'm wrong. I believe they're in Iceland or Greenland. And the little town. I also want to know if the rest, maybe they said it and I missed it, but the rest of the crew that was with Thor's and Thorfinn got home safe. So we get a little bit of a little story of how they're surviving without the men in their tribe, and I'm sure it's rough, especially back then. And the daughter is working twice as hard every day, probably putting 16-hour days. And which is really hard if you're a working man. And 16-hour work days, double shifts. She's busting her ass, going fishing, hunting, whatever it takes to put food on the table for her and her mom and whatnot. But at the end, she breaks down, she's crying, she's so sad, and she's tired, and she just needs a break. It's a sad story, but I'll be honest with you, I did not care too much. I mean, I don't know if it's going to lead to something more down the line. I really don't know if the sister and the mom are going to have something to do with the story later. I'm assuming they will if they're coming back to them and they didn't just kill them off or something, like a raid, like a Viking raid on their little town without Thor's there to protect them. I don't know. But quickly, we find out that Thorkell and the gang, whatever London gang, have captured a prince named Canute, I believe. Is that how you say it? Canute is how it's spelled. He is the Prince of Denmark and England, succeeding the father Sweyn and brother of Harold. This dude is a prince of this of England, basically. Of Denmark and England. That's what I'm reading here. And he's been captured by Thorkell, and Thorkell's basically using him as bait to have a really good fight, is what I got from it. And Askeladd finds out and says, well, we're going to go get that little boy, and we're going to save him. And we're going to bring him back to his kingdom, and they're going to take our demands, and they're going to do whatever I say. They're going to pay us big money. It's going to be great. I think that's what Askeladd wants. I think that he just wants a big payday. But it also seems like he wants more than that, because when they get there, there's a big fight happening. Thorkell is already in the midst of a fight of somebody trying to save Canute. And Askeladd's like waiting off to the side with his crew, like, okay, let them kill each other, and then we'll send in Thorfinn to save Canute. So Askeladd sends in Thorfinn, and he's like, hey man, you didn't beat Thorkell, so if you want to fight me, you better go do this. He goes and Askeladd sends Thorfinn in. Thorfinn goes and saves Canute and his two companions. One's like a priest who likes to drink alcohol, who at one point during this book talks about how love is the best currency. He's kind of interesting. I'm really interested in this like priest guy, but he didn't get to do a whole lot. I'm curious to what he has to do with the story. It seems like he will have something to do. This religious guy that I don't know. The crew keeps asking him questions about God and money and whatever he would want, and he basically says, "My favorite God is the one who created alcohol." I can feel you, bro. But Thorfinn saves Canute and his handlers. They get the F out of Dodge, and then Askeladd persists on making his entire crew, who are so used to sailing on the seas, that they have a rough time hoofing it. They keep moving forward. They probably get 3-4 hours of sleep a night. They want to stay ahead of Thorkell and his gang, because Thorkell's right on their tail. He wants that prince back. He wants justice. So he also wants to fight fucking Thorfinn. And, sorry, it's hard to remember. Thorkell, I keep saying it. They keep marching and marching. Eventually, Askeladd meets a dude on a ship, and he gives him a note. And he's like, "Hey, get this to my buddies across in Wales." They eventually get a ship sent to them of some buddies of Askeladd. And they save them from Thorkell, who is right on their tail, who we find out that from a guy that we learn is named the Ear, I believe, or is nicknamed the Ear, or Ear, just Ear. This guy's got big ears. He looks a little different than the rest of Askeladd's crew. Doesn't look like a fighter, but he's got really good hearing, basically. And he can put his ear to the ground and listen and kind of tell where their enemies are, or if they're being tracked, and whatnot. And this guy's I have a feeling this guy's going to be important later, maybe, or he's just going to be their, listening guy. So the Ear is introduced as one of Askeladd's characters, but it does make me think about Askeladd's crew in depth, because it makes me think that Askeladd has built this crew on special skills. We have the Ear. He can listen, and that's really helpful for, sneak attacks. And I am assuming that we're going to eventually meet other members of Askeladd's crew that have specific skills that he cherry-picked, maybe out of other crews that he's beaten or had found, just happened to meet along his adventures. And he's like, "You are on my crew because you are really good with a gun, or you're really good with a sword." I don't think there's any guns in this story, actually. "You're really good with defense, or you're really good with offense." I have a feeling that Askeladd is a strategist, and he knows, okay, this is how much food we have, this is how we're going to do this. I have these many hand-to-hand combat fighters, I have this many horses, this is who's going to ride the horses, this is who's walking. I have a feeling that Askeladd is he's a strategist. He looks at people like chess pieces, not like living, breathing people. I could see that. He's almost like a Shikamaru from Naruto. And I love that. So they take this prince, and the prince has also got this handler dude that's basically his bodyguard, who's got like this egg-shaped bald head, who's like arguing with Askeladd the whole way, saying, "We need these ships." And Askeladd's like, "No, we're not going to take the 3 ships from these people from Wales that need them because there's war happening. We're not taking their ships. We're going to keep walking." And he's like, "But I hate walking." And at some point, they do get ambushed in Wales. I believe it was Wales. Please correct me if I'm wrong. They get ambushed, and Askeladd's horse gets killed by a bunch of arrows. And there's a crew of Walians. I believe it's Wales. Please don't hate me. I'm trying my best to remember all this stuff. There's a crew from there that are just like, "We don't like you. Your people are bad." And then we find out a little bit about Askeladd's past. There's something going on there. I need to reread this book, because it's something about how Askeladd is related to somebody that would make them not want to kill them. But they are being guided by somebody from Wales who's like, "Hey, we'll take you with us, Prince. the little prince boy that they're with, which I forgot to mention, the prince, Canute, is actually like very feminine when they meet him and almost looks like a princess. And Askeladd even mentions, like, prince? What is happening? He's the future king, by the way. And Askeladd doesn't want to entrust his future, his people's future to this kid. He's a little skeptical. Why would I risk my life for this little boy, other than to get a bunch of money? And they're just a little skeptical. This kid is really nervous. He doesn't like to speak, in front of big groups, which is kind of tough being the king. Maybe one day he'll grow up to be a big manly man, but right now he ain't. And even Thorfinn, who is put in charge of protecting this kid, is like, we're the same age. You're a little bitch, bro. And you need to grow the F up. I've been through some shiz. My dad was killed in front of me because of my fault. It was my fault, man. And you suck. And I have to protect you so that I can fight Askeladd, even though I already saved you. I should already have the free fight with him anyway. I should have 2 fights protecting you as well. So they get past the army that tried to attack them. I believe Thorkell was still after them. At some point, we're going to run into that bad boy again. They end up going into this snowy area at the end. And this is where shit goes crazy. This was my second favorite part of this story, of this book. Askeladd and the crew end up in this little village with like 60 people in it. And they even show some panels of the kids, praying and having a meal and talking about like, well, we're just going to have a good night and a good food and whatnot. And then Askeladd and his crew run in and just pillage it. They take all their food. They tie them all up or put them together and like, hey, we're going to take all your food. And they're in a snowy village and they're like, hey man, that's all the food we have for the season, the winter. And Askeladd counts up the food and says, this is exactly enough food for you guys to get through the winter, and barely enough food for my soldiers and me to just get through this week. So we're gonna kill you. That's how brutal Askeladd turned out to be. I thought this guy was secretly a sweetheart. Boy, was I wrong. Askeladd is ruthless, but he's also a strategist, like I had mentioned earlier. He knows that if he leaves them half their food, which they're willing to take, like one of the guys in this village says, please just leave us half of our food. You can take half. It's all good. He's like, no, if I leave you guys alive and we take all your food, one of you guys is going to get away and go tell somebody that we're here. It's not going to be good for me. You're all going to suffer and die. So I'm just going to make it easy. We're just going to kill you. So he has somebody in his crew, if not himself, kill all of these villagers, including children. I believe like 20 to 40 children were all murdered. I'm going to have to wait and see in the book 3 to see if those children happen to get away. Most anime shonen will let children get away, at the very least. But he murders this whole village just so they have somewhere warm to stay and just so they have food to get through a few days. And lo and behold, one of the daughters of the first little family we get to see in this little village gets away. She walks away into the snow and is just traumatized by the death of her entire village. And I'm assuming is going to go tell somebody that Askeladd does not want to know that they're there. That's my assumption, or she's just going to die in the snow. I don't know what's going to happen there. It's crazy. This book ended on a crazy cliffhanger. I think it was literally just to show you how ruthless this world is, how ruthless Askeladd is. He's willing to do just terrible things to survive, and I'm here for it. I still think Askeladd's a badass, and I really wish that we got to see him have a real one-on-one fight with somebody. I was actually reading going, come on. I want to see Thorkell and Askeladd fight. Like, I know he said he wouldn't fight him without a good reason, but I want to see power scaling wise where they match up, because Askeladd lost to Thor's, and there was a point where Thorkell talks to Thorfinn and says, your father, was the only man that was able to best me in combat. So he is stronger than Thorkell. But where does that put Askeladd? I mean, Thor's had a pretty tough time with Askeladd. Askeladd's quick. He's smart. He's a strategic man. I still want to know how these guys are so much stronger than the average person, other than just training every day, other than ruthlessness, other than just being who they are, the blood that runs through their veins. Please comment down below and explain to me about Thorfinn's bloodline and who he's related to. I definitely remember them mentioning something about Thorfinn or Askeladd's bloodline and it being important to the story, and I really do want to know, because Askeladd's my favorite character in this story. He's so cool, and I can't wait to see him develop his relationship with Thorfinn. I want more information, and I'm sure every book we're going to get a little bit of this, a little bit of that. They're going to drip feed us this information about his relationship with Thorfinn, and I want to know, like, what does he want? Is he training this boy to be the eventual slayer of himself? Like, is he planning for Thorfinn to be the one to kill him? Or is he just like, well, I mean, if the kid does kill me one day, great, at least I got a lot out of him. Because he uses him to complete missions and whatnot. He uses this boy. And why? This boy was nothing when they met him. He was a little spoiled brat in a way. But now he's a superstar. He's one of the best soldiers he's got. He entrusts him with protecting the future king. I mean, he trusts this boy. He knows this boy's got the most potential in his crew, or otherwise he wouldn't bother with him. There's something going on there. And I want to know. This has been More Fanime. Welcome. Please tell your friends. Subscribe, because I'm on the path. I'm on the way to 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year. And I can do it with your help. I'll talk to you later.